I broke all my movie rules when it came to Wicked. I went into a deep dive of recommended viewing, I watched several renditions of the major characters' songs, I watched The Wizard of Oz, twice, and I basically built up every aspect of what I thought Wicked Part 1 was going to be. So thank Ozness that I was right. I'm Hope Costa. Welcome to Even Odder Podcast. Wicked Part 1 brings the beloved Broadway musical to the big screen, telling the story of Elphaba Thropp, the misunderstood Wicked Witch of the West. The story begins with Dorothy's victory over the witch, but quickly shifts to Glinda the Good recounting Elphaba's life. Elphaba, born with green skin and ostracized from an early age, attends Shiz, alongside her paraplegic sister, Nessa Rose. Her arrival is met with ridicule, particularly from Galinda Upland, a self-absorbed and ambitious student. But when Elphaba displays extraordinary magical abilities, she catches the attention of Madame Morrible, who offers to mentor her in sorcery. Amid campus rivalries and eventual friendships, Elphaba learns of the growing oppression of Oz's animal residents, who are losing their ability to speak and live freely. When her growing magical powers earn her and Glinda a trip to the Emerald City, Elphaba soon realizes the wizard is a fraud, and part of a conspiracy to strip animals of their rights, ultimately revealing that he plans to use Elphaba's magic as a tool for his sinister agenda. Defying the wizard and Morrible, Elphaba becomes an outlaw, branded as a wicked witch by Oz's propaganda machine. Despite Glinda's attempts to persuade her to compromise, Elphaba chooses resistance over reconciliation. In a powerful act of rebellion, she uses sorcery to defy gravity, soaring into the night sky on her broomstick and evading capture. As she vanishes into the darkness, Elphaba's transformation from an idealistic young woman to the infamous Wicked Witch of the West begins. Wicked has always been one of my favorite musicals. I'm not an expert, but Glinda, Elfie, and I have all crossed paths more than a few times. As much as I've devoured the original Broadway cast soundtrack and scanned blurry YouTube clips, I've never had the opportunity to see the show in person, so seeing the Wicked movie come to life has been a dream of mine for what feels like forever. But you know what? I'm so glad I had to wait. I'm so glad all of us had to wait. I wouldn't want this movie any other time than right now. And if you haven't seen Wicked yet, I urge you to see it in a theater soon, because it is immaculate. For clarity, I will be using the names Galinda and Glinda interchangeably to reflect the timeline of Wicked and when the Galinda-Glinda split occurs. Let's start with the incredible performances. And there's truly no better person to begin with than Ariana Grande Butera. From the moment she stepped on screen, I was mesmerized. Her portrayal of Glinda is layered and captivating, and she reveals so much without having to say a word. In her first scene, the subtle anguish that's woven into her happy performance beautifully exposes Glinda's depth and complexity. It's a masterful introduction to a character who's far more than she initially appears. Then we meet Galinda, arriving at Shiz, a completely different pace and, in many ways, an entirely different character. Ariana captures this shift effortlessly. Galinda at Shiz is petulant, annoying, and relatively unlikable at first. But Ariana's performance makes you fall in love with her anyway. As the film progresses, Galinda embarks on a constant inner battle between what she thinks is good and what she knows is good. Ariana clearly understands this journey on a fundamental level, and that understanding is etched into her every expression. Her self-assurance clashes with her self-doubt in ways that feel so authentic that, even knowing Glinda is, well, a bit of a bad witch, you can't help but believe in the goodness she claims to have. Ariana also preserves Glinda's signature silliness throughout much of this film. Her physical performance, playful, exaggerated, and perfectly timed, is reminiscent of Glinda as she's always been portrayed on stage. But Ariana brings that charm seamlessly to the screen. I'm utterly enamored by how she's able to make Glinda her own, while also honoring everything we've loved about the character for years. Of course, Ariana Grande has always had a beautiful voice, but in this movie, she has one of the most lovely, pure, crisp, clean voices I have ever heard. Her rendition of Popular is absolutely perfect. She looks like she's having the time of her life in that entire scene, and it is so contagiously fun. Ariana Grande has said plenty about how much Wicked and Glinda mean to her, and it shows in every witchy way. Her rendition of each song has so much respect for the original Broadway cast that each bit of originality she brings to the role shines through effortlessly. Speaking of effortless, let's talk about how effortlessly Cynthia Erivo made me cry at several points during this film, with just the power of her voice. I haven't seen Cynthia Erivo in much else, but she's brilliant. And if you haven't seen her performance of I'm Here from The Color Purple, I'm going to need you to pause this episode right now to go listen to it. Did you do it? Good. Because, dear Oz, that witch is amazing. The Wicked Witch of the West is a character with over a century of history, which I'd imagine makes it tough to bring anything new to the role. And that's without even mentioning the many iconic Elphabas who have graced the stage over the past 20 years. But Cynthia Erivo exceeds every expectation while still adding her own unique. Admittedly, I was already crying before she started singing, but her performance of The Wizard and I was breathtaking. Elphaba is, of course, the more demanding role, but having come into this knowing the magnificence of Ariana Grande's voice and not being as familiar with Cynthia's, it was so fun getting to be absolutely blown away by the power and quality of her voice. Cynthia Erivo brings such authenticity to the character of Elphaba. The judgment and ridicule Elphaba has faced all her life are so evident in her character. When she's able to shed her defensiveness and be more open with the other characters, there's a very subtle shift in Erivo's disposition, but it's just enough to let us feel the vulnerability of her actions. It's something I haven't seen quite as genuinely done by any other Elphaba, and I think it helped provide a really seamless transition from stage to screen. I could go on and on about how incredible Erivo's voice is, but really her witch cackle at the end of What Is This Feeling is all the proof you need that this woman is a wonderfully wicked witch. On to some of the more minor players. Michelle Yeoh fits the role of Madame Morrible perfectly. Her presence demands attention when it's called for, and at other times, I'm just impressed by how funny her disdain for Glinda is. While she doesn't have the strongest voice in the cast, I'm super impressed by the entire cast's commitment to sing live. Michelle does come off a bit softer than what I think is typical of Madame Morrible, particularly in her singing, but I like the more ingratiating elements it adds to the character. Another unexpected voice, hello Peter Dinklage. His singing super surprised me, and his voice acting is just as captivating. As always, his talent and skill elevated every moment he was on screen. Jonathan Bailey is another exceptional addition to this film. Fiyero as a character is supposed to be this carefree, charming flirt, and I totally got that with his first interaction with Elphaba. But then, something about getting to the university was just a little underwhelming for me. However, for those who are less familiar with Wicked, I think it provided a necessary distinction between what Glinda and Fiyero's relationship is versus what his and Elphaba's is. Of course, Dancing Through Life is a great scene, and the choreography Jonathan Bailey is able to nail is really quite impressive. And then for someone who's always impressive at being himself, Jeff Goldblum. I love Jeff Goldblum. He is in some of my favorite movies, and his zaniness is always an appreciated factor. He is, however, Jeff Goldblum here. No more, no less. And I think if it was 10 or 15 years ago, it wouldn't be quite as enjoyable. Which is kind of this double-edged sword for me, because in a movie that otherwise feels pretty timeless and very escapist, Jeff Goldblum brings me right back to 2024. I love him, so I'm totally fine with it. But I'm not sure his performance is going to stand the test of time in the same way that I think the others will. Some honorable mentions for performance include Bowen Yang, Marissa Bode, and Ethan Slater. I included Bowen Yang because while I would normally dislike him in such a serious project, he makes a perfect sycophant, aptly named Fanny. I'm expecting to see more of Marissa Bode, and particularly a lot more of Ethan Slater, in Part 2 as Wicked Act 2, begins to sync up with The Wizard of Oz. I'm not going to spoil it for anybody who doesn't know, but these two have way more of a role to play in the second part of the story. To finish off performances, I have to briefly mention how elated I was to see both Kristen Chenoweth and Idina Menzel do cameos for the film. It was a perfect head nod to the original cast and added such a special touch. Moving on, let's talk about the incredible shots in this movie. You expect intentionality from most films, but here it is practically dripping with it. John M. Chu had a vision, and he ran with it, fully committed to bringing this world to life in ways that feel both fresh and timeless. Despite being 2 hours and 40 minutes long, this movie never drags. The camera is always in motion, and from the very first frame, you feel like you've stepped straight into the magical land of Oz. There's a stunning use of close-up shots throughout the film, and I love how you can find unspoken truths just behind the characters' expressions. The close-ups of Ariana during No One Mourns the Wicked are a perfect example. They capture so much nuance and make me even more excited for her performance of Thank Goodness in Part 2. I've already told you, I've never seen the show on stage, but I've watched plenty of YouTube videos, and what stands out here for me is how the film seems to offer a deeper level of intimacy with each of the characters. The camera plays a huge role in this. It helps to break down the barrier of performance that's always slightly present in theater. Instead, the shot is used to draw you in and make you feel personally invested in the unfolding of the story. The movie is filled with stunning visuals, but a few moments really stand out. The arrival at Shiz feels immediately grand and magical. The framing of Elphaba with the university in the background at the end of The Wizard and I is breathtaking. The rotating library shelves spelling out Oz during Dancing Through Life is a clever touch. But I think my absolute favorite sequence is the popular number. Taking place almost entirely in Elphaba and Galinda's dorm room, it's one of the most straightforward spaces in the movie. Yet, it manages to be one of the most fun and memorable scenes. The choreography and use of space feel incredibly creative. From the girls lying face to face, lying down, a moment that feels so relatable like being with your best friend, to Ariana swinging from the chandelier, dancing down the hallways, and finally ascending a mountain of luggage to finish the number. It's pure Galinda. Over the top, bubbly, and entirely endearing. What makes it even more striking is how colorful and warm the popular sequence feels compared to much of the rest of the film. Honestly, I expected Wicked to lean more into the vibrant colors, but the movie stays within a more neutral color palette. This choice feels intentional, though, as it mirrors the political and social undercurrents running through the story. Subtle details like the drought Professor Dillamond and Elphaba discuss, the animal rights subplot, and the briefly seen more colorful sigil in the Shiz courtyard all hint at a deeper history. These moments reflect how Oz's hardships left the people vulnerable to manipulation, and how the wizard took advantage of their struggles through fascist rhetoric, erasing Oz's history, and spreading misinformation to solidify his own control. Together, these visual and narrative clues provide a rich backdrop that really elevate the story. Which brings us to the wonder of this screenplay. The Wicked movie is adapted from Act 1 of the Wicked musical, which in turn is based on Wicked, the novel by Gregory Maguire. As we all know by now, it serves as a prequel to, and retelling of, the events from The Wizard of Oz. I have to say, Wicked feels like every writer's dream. I write a lot, and though it's been some time since I've tried to write a story, I think a lot of people can relate to the idea of being inspired by someone else's work to create their own. And while I usually wouldn't just put this out there, I read a lot of fan fiction as a kid. And honestly, Wicked is the ultimate fan fiction success story. It's amazing to take a world you already know and love and build upon it. I'm not exactly sure how much it varies from the musical, but I do know they vary significantly in length. The entirety of Wicked the musical could fit into Wicked Part 1, so they definitely built upon their source material. During my viewing, I noticed that there's a slightly different pacing to the songs, but the added dialogue during those moments is often hilarious, deeply moving, or something in between. The plot of Wicked really does have something for everyone. It explores big themes like nonconformity and the courage to stand out. but it also shows the allure and challenges of conformity itself. It's a fascinating balance highlighting how those forces can shape relationships, power dynamics, and personal growth. With Part 2 of Wicked being released next year, Part 1 has received the criticism of being almost entirely set up, but I think the story that's at hand offers finality in its own way. And to me, it makes complete sense to end it where they did. Part 2 of Wicked takes place years later, and assuming you've seen Wizard of Oz or the beginning of this film, you sort of already know where things are going. I already can't wait to watch the first part again, and I'm absolutely itching to see how they'll pull off Wicked's thrilling conclusion. I'm pretty biased, though. I sort of know what's all meant to happen. If you've never had much exposure to Wicked, let me know below what you thought about the ending. If only I had the braverism to talk about sound design today. You see, I'm still weeping over their beautiful voices that sang live. I got lucky too. My tickets for Wicked were on the 21st, and the soundtrack dropped the 22nd. I've been listening ever since. Every song is masterfully included, thanks to the combined efforts of the performers, John Powell's interpretive vision, and the rest of the sound design team. Glinda's voice ringing out over the Ozian broadcast system during the opening number brings you directly to Oz. In that moment, I felt like I was being swept away just as Dear Dorothy was. The score's used to perfection. While For Good doesn't appear in this act, its theme weaves subtly into moments between Elphaba and Glinda, hinting at how deeply they will ultimately impact each other. Cynthia Erivo's performances are nothing short of golden, but a few moments truly stand out. Her emergence into the open field near the final verse of The Wizard and I is a bewitching moment that commands even the biggest musical hater to pay attention. Defying Gravity is an absolute tearjerker. Her delivery of is perfect, and a powerful moment that sticks with you. Ariana Grande, as I mentioned, adds originality to the role while immensely honoring those who came before her. Her breathless excitement and playful growls in Popular make it one of the most vibrant renditions I've ever heard. The way she scales up the laws at the end is super creative. I wouldn't be surprised if it becomes a new staple in future performances. The choreography in Dancing Through Life is wickedly impressive, with moments that feel like the library itself is contributing to the rhythm of the song. It is simply another testament to the care and creativity poured into this adaptation. This is a movie that absolutely deserves to be seen in a theater, not just for its visuals, but for its spectacular sound. The music and sound design truly elevate the experience, making every note unforgettable. When I think about production for this movie, a few key things come to mind. First, there's the casting process. It's wild to think that Ariana Grande almost didn't land this role. While that might have been fine, it also would have been a complete tragedy, especially because she seems like the perfect pairing for Cynthia Erivo. It's funny knowing that both of them were cast despite not having successful chemistry reads with other contenders for Elphaba and Glinda. They were both such standouts individually that they were cast together without ever having their own chemistry read. One of the most impressive aspects of this movie is the incredible work that went into creating and utilizing practical sets. John M. Chu, alongside Nathan Crowley and his remarkable team, had the brilliant minds needed to bring these sets to life. They planted over 9 million tulips for Munchkinland, and built a 50-foot-tall set with a 4-foot-deep water reservoir and tank for Shiz University, both of which are absolutely breathtaking. However, I was particularly impressed by the Emerald City. Crowley stated in an interview that it was inspired by the illusory white city of Chicago, an interesting parallel to the wizard himself, who is an illusion. The set here really does have a perfect balance. It's not overly extravagant, still iconic, and pays perfect homage to the Emerald City from The Wizard of Oz. It's a blend of familiarity and innovation that feels just right. Overall, I did find it a bit challenging to be critical of Wicked Part 1, partly because of its legendary source material, and partly due to the evident time and dedication the creators poured into bringing it to the screen. I've wanted to see Wicked for as long as I can remember. And the fact that it was finally made into a movie with such care means the world to me. Even if you're not a longtime fan, I think there's a strong chance that you'll enjoy this film. It's a magical journey that truly deserves to be experienced. Wicked Part 1 gets a 9 out of 10. It really does mean so much to me to include this as one of Even Otter's first full reviews, and I hope to be right here again diving into the second part with you when it arrives. But for now, I have a quick question for you. Did you notice the abundance of whimsical Ozian words throughout the film? How scandalocious those writers must have felt. Unfortunately, the Ozian glossarium is a bit lacking, so I want to hear your thoughts. What's a word that looks like it belongs in Oz or Wicked, but is actually just a real word? My pick is euphemism. Make sure to leave your word in the comments below for me to read, or check out our latest poll on Instagram at Even Otter Podcast to discover the best Ozian-inspired words. I have so much gratitude for you listening today.
I know. That's what makes me so nice.
I've been a little hung up on this first TV Thursday episode, but I think I've got something. So if you need a quick escape on Thanksgiving, come listen to me chat about Blue Eye Samurai this Thursday. And for next Monday, I'll be diving into Moana 2.
The ocean is a friend of mine.
But that's all for now. So until next time, stay wicked, my friends.